if we go for the moderate, if we go to the center, we're going to lose.
Filmmaker Michael Moore, the guy that predicted that Trump would defeat Hillary in 2016, has endorsed Bernie Sanders for president. Now, I'm going to show you several clips here of Michael Moore discussing his endorsement. All the clips are from MSNBC, because the way the media takes this and how they kind of frame the discussions around this, I find sort of interesting. And really, it gives you a window into their bubble, like the perspective that mainstream press often delivers millions of people at home. So first, here is Michael Moore on Ari's show.
Why me for Bernie? Because Bernie understands that capitalism and the greedy form of capitalism, especially that we have now, is at the core of so many of the problems that we're talking about. And he's not afraid to come out and just say that's the problem.
And you think he's in a position to win the nomination and be president?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there was the Emerson poll in Iowa yesterday showed a head-to-head with Bernie, Biden, and Elizabeth. Only one of them came out ahead of Trump, and that was Bernie Sanders.
Well, look,
he's absolutely can win this. I
appreciate you breaking this news on the beat. I'm only retaking the mic to get to the other thing that is so important.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Let's first discuss how that conversation ended. So this is part of a longer discussion, obviously, but it was only about 3 minutes. They talked about maybe 2 minutes. They talked about Bernie Sanders, or they talked about Michael Moore's endorsement of Bernie Sanders. And then they went on to another discussion that lasted about 9 minutes. I mean, they could have talked more about this, but Ari was really excited to move on to something else. Once Michael Moore mentioned that Bernie Sanders is the only candidate in Iowa to defeat Donald Trump in a poll where Warren and Biden both lose to Trump, all of a sudden, well, we got to go to the next thing to talk about. I'll tell you what's happening there. I've worked in a newsroom. Somebody was yelling in Ari's ear, the producer was yelling in his ear to move on. Now, why was he telling him to move on? It's up to you to decide. But clearly he was being told to move on. Butting into a conversation like that, butting into the middle of a sentence when Michael Moore is discussing why he supports Bernie Sanders, there's a reason that Ari was told to butt into that sentence and move on. Now, let's get to the next clip here, where this is Michael Moore on Katie Tour. This is actually on Lawrence O'Donnell's show, but Katie Tour's filling in. And to be fair, Michael Moore has a lot more time here to discuss why he supports Bernie. But I also find the framing around some of Katie Tour's questions sort of suspect. Watch.
You know the Rust Belt, the blue wall, former blue wall, better than anybody.
Yeah.
Who do you think is going to resonate in Michigan, in Wisconsin,
Bernie.
In Ohio?
Bernie won Michigan. Bernie won Wisconsin. Bernie won Minnesota. Bernie won all those primaries.
Is that who Democrats should be focusing on, those voters who maybe were Obama voters and then Trump voters? And can you peel them away, or should they be focused on new voters?
I think, yes. I think what we need to do is figure out who didn't come out in 16. That was our problem in Michigan. Hillary only lost by 2 votes per precinct. That's it. And what happened was in places like Flint and Detroit, large numbers of young people and African Americans just didn't bother to vote. Or there's 89,000 people that voted in Michigan, actually showed up to the polls, voted for everybody down ballot. It was mostly Democrats, and left the top box blank. That's how much they didn't want to vote for Hillary Clinton. Bernie is going to get the job done, and Bernie's going to fight. Everybody knows this about Bernie Sanders. Even if you're not going to vote for him, you know that if he's in that Oval Office, he's going to fight for us, for the working people of this country, for the people who are not part of the 1%.
Why do you think there is this conventional wisdom out there that only a moderate can win? Only a moderate like Joe Biden, maybe Pete Buttigieg, only that person can capture the entirety of the Democratic Party, enough to beat Donald Trump?
A moderate, if we go for the moderate, if we go to the center, we're going to lose. The way to inspire our base, nobody on the, this is what you have to admire about Republicans and conservatives. They don't sit around going, now, we better have somebody closer to the middle and somebody who's moderate and somebody who doesn't upset the Democrats so much. They don't talk like that. They say, let's get out there. We believe in this. We're not going to pull back. We're always trying to find a way because we're so frightened, and we don't need to be frightened because the majority of the country is with us. The majority believe that there's climate change. They want gun control. They believe women should be paid the same as men. They believe in choice. Go down all the lists of all the issues. The majority agree with the Democrats.
All right, so a number of fantastic points there, once again, made by Michael Moore. But I find the framing around some of these discussions from Katie Tur just to be, I mean, I guess you expect it, but they never really seem to retain any new information. So she asks here, who can win the Rust Belt? Now, you can be super fair and say, well, she's just setting up Michael Moore to answer the question. Bernie Sanders, he's going to say, obviously, since he endorsed him, but also Bernie Sanders because he won the Rust Belt in the primary in 2016. I mean, Bernie Sanders is the one to win those states. And then she asks, should Democrats focus on new voters? I think this is a point that isn't made enough. So some credit there is deserved that, yeah, Democrats need to focus on getting out non-voters out to vote, not focus on flipping Republican voters, conservative voters. Many, like the idea that Democrats are going to win over candidates with a moderate is, or voters with a moderate is just, I mean, how many times do Democrats have to lose with moderates? I mean, they just put up Hillary Clinton in 2016, the ultimate moderate, and she lost. Case closed. Yet they keep asking this question, which brings me to her next question here. She says, why do you think there's this conventional wisdom that only a moderate can win? Because you push that idea. Your network pushes that idea. CNN pushes that idea. The Washington Post pushes that idea. The New York Times pushes that idea. Other mainstream outlets push that idea. That's why. I mean, you answered your own question. Why is there this conventional wisdom? Who do you think creates that conventional wisdom? Your network does. Your network is part of the whole process of creating this conventional wisdom. And it doesn't matter how many times they have on people like Michael Moore to try and dispel that. They keep pushing this idea. I mean, you've seen it again and again. They've had people on, like Michael Moore and others, that have pushed the opposite, that have showed them, no, that a moderate is not how you win. I mean, look at 2016. A moderate is not how you win. Yet it doesn't matter how often that BS has to be dispelled. They keep bringing it up every single conversation when discussing the primary. It's crazy. Now, let me get to this last clip here where this question, I mean, I'm glad Michael Moore came prepared because this is one of those misleading questions that has this built-in assumption that Medicare for all will destroy healthcare for, you know, all these union workers that have great healthcare. Just insane. But Michael Moore answers it perfectly here.
Let me ask you about healthcare. You know unions really well. Unions have, some of them at least, have great healthcare. Great healthcare.
That's true.
It's the last thing that they have.
Yeah.
Great healthcare.
Yes.
It's private healthcare.
Yeah.
Are they going to be willing to vote for someone who's going to say, I want to take your great healthcare
Absolutely.
and put government-run healthcare in place?
Absolutely, because I was just in Flint, and I'll tell you, because of this GM strike, the UAW strike, they went on strike. And what did the CEO of GM do a few days into the strike? Cut all their health care. And it reminded them that this private health care that we have, this great health care, this isn't some permanent thing. Your boss can take your health care from you at the snap of a fingers. That's what they did to these striking workers. That's what they could do at any time. If it is part of our law that says that great health care is yours simply because you live here, you're a citizen of this country, you are covered. As opposed to General Motors or Walmart or whatever could just wake up tomorrow and say, you know what, you don't have it. Just like these camera people, the people here I was just talking to. This used to be union here, union workers at this network. Now they're not union. They don't have a choice. They have no security when it's private, profit-making healthcare. We need healthcare that is not set up so that a few companies can make billions of dollars in profits. It has to be. Why can't we do this? Every other country does this. What is wrong with us that we can't figure this out?
All right, so a prediction here. Even though Michael Moore gave a great answer discussing why Medicare for all is the answer, why people that are in unions will indeed support Bernie Sanders and will want Medicare for all, even though Michael Moore gave a great answer here, Katie Tur and others on the network on MSNBC will continue to use the empty talking point that Medicare for all is going to take away health care for all these people that are in unions, because they never actually absorb any of this information. They have a particular worldview to push, and they push it. Their worldview is from a corporate perspective, from the perspective of people that are wealthy. That's their perspective of the capital owners. They don't have the perspective of the worker. So They're going to continue to push this idea that, well, Medicare for All is going to take your private health care away, when in fact, Medicare for All replaces your health care with better health care and no out-of-pocket expenses, no deductibles, nothing extra, nothing, no premiums, nothing. I'm in Canada. I live under a single-payer system. If I'm sick, I go to the doctor, I show my health card, that's it, I leave. I had surgery once, same thing. I planned the surgery ahead of time. It was a minor surgery, so I didn't need to get it the next day. So it was planned months in advance. Got my surgery, came home. That was it. I mean, it's I talk about healthcare a lot, but if you haven't seen me talk about it, it's almost hard to discuss the experience as a Canadian, as someone who's always lived under this system, because I never think about healthcare unless I need it. Americans are talking about healthcare all the time because there are things to actually think about. Whereas if you're in Canada, if you need it, you just get it. Now, to be super fair, there are issues with our system, but it's only because it doesn't go far enough. So under Medicare for All, dental is covered. Under our system in Canada, dental is not covered. So that's a problem. I would like universal dental care coverage in our country. Same with pharmacare. Though our pharmaceutical costs are much lower than Americans, it still isn't completely free. So you still have to pay out-of-pocket expenses to get pharmacare. So that should also be covered. And there are parties in Canada fighting for that. But like the issues with any single-payer system aren't that there needs to be more private companies involved. I mean, that's never the answer. If you look around the world at any universal system, of course, no healthcare system is perfect, but these universal systems, these public systems, are just leagues better than what Americans have because they are not relying on private companies. The answer is never to rely on a for-profit motive for something that is necessary. I mean, healthcare is a necessity. The fact that you have private interests in that system, people making money off of sick people, off of denying people coverage, that is disgusting. Like, how is this even still a discussion? And Michael Moore makes just the most important point here when it comes to unions. If you have Medicare for All, that takes the healthcare out of your current system, that private healthcare out of there, meaning it's guaranteed to you are always going to have it regardless of your work situation. So say you're not even in a union. You want to change jobs. You don't have to worry about leaving your private healthcare coverage behind that you may have under your current employer, because it's guaranteed to you on the federal level. So you can leave your job, start a new job, or go back to school, maybe start a business, and the people you hire already have health care. So this also benefits small businesses. I mean, the only way that tying healthcare coverage to an employer benefits anybody is it benefits big employers that now don't have to think about maybe improving their work environment, because a lot of people are staying in their job simply because they have healthcare coverage. So, like, it only benefits the employer. There is no benefit to the actual employee under a system like this. It's just, I don't even know what to say anymore. It's so obvious to me. Under a Medicare for All system, healthcare is given to people that need it most. So people talk about rationing. Oh, there's rationing in universal systems. I mean, there has to be, right? Because everybody has healthcare. But there's rationing in the American system. I mean, what is it? Like 45,000 people die a year due to a lack of access to healthcare in America. There is rationing in the American system. The difference is the rationing in the American system is based on wealth. If you have a lot of money, healthcare is great for you. I mean, no one's denying that fact. If you're wealthy in America, you have great healthcare. But if you're not wealthy, then there's a problem. Whereas rationing in these universal systems is based on need. If you are in a life or death scenario, yeah, you're going to get that healthcare, that surgery, whatever it is. You're going to get that immediately because you need it now. But the rationing under the American system is based on wealth. That's it. So, yeah, I get annoyed by these networks that ask questions like this and never absorb the information. I mean, I have no problem, playing devil's advocate and trying to get information that way and just questioning, Michael Moore on why he supports Bernie. All that's fine. But they never actually retain any of these answers. They never absorb any of this new information. They just ask it, it goes out there, and then the next day happens and they continue out with their same talking points as the previous day. There's never any learning process throughout this entire, situation. So, yeah, I just want people to understand that there's a certain way that the media frames these questions, and to be able to get outside of that and think about the opposite side. I mean, why isn't Katie Tur asking, instead of saying, oh, people in unions are going to lose their health care, why not mention, hey, there are many sick people in America. How is Bernie going to solve that? Medicare for all. Like there's other ways to ask these questions. All these people that can't afford homes, that can't afford to live. How is Bernie going to help those people? I mean, that's how, if the media was actually on the side of people, those are the kind of questions they would be asking. They would be asking on behalf of the American people. All these people don't have health care. All these people are going hungry. All these people can't afford housing. How are you going to help these people? That's what the media should be asking. But instead, it's always from this conservative right-wing perspective. Oh, how are you going to pay for it? Oh, but isn't it going to affect people this way? Oh, but how about these corporations? Like it's never from the perspective of the average person.